Hey everyone, Mario again coming at you with another review. Today is another episode of First Impressions, the video series where I discuss films that I have watched, either films that I've been meaning to watch that I'm just finally getting around to watching, or films that are in their theatrical run still. Today's it fits more into the former, but it's one of the class ones. This is a film I watched last week in class. It's a 1989 Japanese cyberpunk film called Tetsuo the Iron Man. It's a film that is directed by Shinya Tsukamoto. It was produced by Japan Home Video. He also plays one of the characters that in the English version, at least, which we saw the sub, but I'm just going to use his character's English name, the Metal Fetishist, which I did not know that until looking up some stuff before turning on the recording thing. In addition to him, the film also stars, I'm probably going to butcher the pronunciation of this name, so bear with me, Tomorowo Taguchi as man, or the salaryman. Kei Fujiwara is the woman or girlfriend. Nobu Kanaoka is the woman in glasses. Naomasa Musaka is the doctor. And Renji Ishibashi is Tramp. And that's basically all the main characters. Now, given that this is a cyberpunk horror film, based on that, you can kind of guess you're going to get some weird stuff in here. And that'd be putting it mildly with this film, because this film is weird with all capitals. Part of it is accentuated by the fact that it was filmed on a 16mm camera with a certain type of film, which the professor mentioned what type of film it was, but off the top of my head I forget what it was, but he showed us a short film that he filmed himself with the same type of film, and you can sort of see the stylistic similarities. The only difference is that with our professor's film, you can actually see that it was filmed in color, whereas this one, I was having a difficult time at times seeing if it was in black and white or if it was in color. That's how the grading is, but that adds to the weirdness, I think. And also, it's a low budget, so those things kind of combine and make the film seem a little bit more interesting, especially when you take the practical effects into account, which, once I start to explain the plot, you'll kind of get the idea what type of practical effects I'm talking about. Now, the film is about the character called the Man. He is, oh, that's the metal fetishist southern name, excuse me. I mean, the salaryman. He runs over this guy called the metal fetishist, who we see in the opening credits putting a piece of metal into his leg, and then he starts running when he sees maggots and stuff. He gets hit, and we think, okay, what's going to happen here? Then we cut to the salaryman. He's feeling weird ever since the accident. Apparently him and his girlfriend, it looks like they had sex after the accident. It's very weird with how this film is edited, so you're going to have to slowly piece together what happens. Like, okay, it's a little weird, but go with it. Well, after the accident, he starts feeling weird, and he slowly starts to have metal pop up all over his body. I mean, different body parts start to turn to metal. Even his turns into metal, which the way we saw that, I couldn't help but chuckle at it, because it takes the phrase screwing to a whole other level. That's all I'm going to say. It's one of those things you got to watch, and you're like, to quote the Miz, you're going to be like, really? But in a good way. Really? And as you could guess, there is humor in here. It is slightly dark due to what's going on in the film with the man turning into just a big pile of metal machinery. And in the end, the salaryman and the metal fetishist are basically fighting, and they eventually become one at the end. I know there's a lot of stuff I'm not mentioning in there, but it's one of those films that you got to go see for yourself, and I don't want to spoil a lot about it, but just watching Taguchi's performance as a salaryman and how he works around with the practical effects around him, it's like, ooh, you really feel his pain. Especially since it never gives a straight answer for why he's turning into a pile of machine, other than the accident and the same things happening to the guy he hit. So that's why I saw it as kind of a allegory for STDs, specifically more AIDS, because AIDS was a big thing in the 80s when this film was made. Granted, it was more American phenomenon, and this is a Japanese film, but I kind of saw it as something like that, kind of like when you look at House as an allegory for the nuclear war. You take it the same principle and just make it outrageous, just the way it happens. Maybe it was the whole sexual intercourse with his girlfriend that made me think that, and the fact that that little scene where she's trying to talk him out of the bedroom, the dialogue there, that's what probably made me think of it. Now, the professor mentioned that it was something to do with technology and the man becoming the machine, which I can also see that interpretation. could be one of those ones that you could see, multiple interpretations out of it. From that angle, I see it kind of like an early attempt at touching on the whole thing about technology speeding up to the point where maybe not the same vibe as something like the Terminator, but we'll become too dependent on it to where, to steal a line from Animal Farm, I can't tell which is which. Or basically, paraphrase Superman. The machine becomes the man and the man becomes the machine. We become so dependent on it that we can't get away from it. I say this as I'm using a machine to record my thoughts on this, but, a little bit of funny humor thrown in there on my part. Or at least I find it a little funny. I personally go a little bit more with the STD one, but I think there's a little bit of both in there. Like I said, multiple interpretations. The practical effects, you could tell, are low budget, but for how the film is shot and for what the film is going for, they work. And like I said, the actor, he gets the right amount of pain out. In the ending, it's one of those ones that, like, what the hell is happening? But it works. And I think what adds to it is the fact that there's randomly a gun in one of their hands. It's like, where'd the gun come from? Is he gonna go conquer the world? We're gonna take over the world. So fetishists, what we're gonna do tonight? The same thing we do every night, Salary. Try to take over the world with weapons. Stuff like that. As you can tell, this is a film that definitely comes with my recommendation. Whether you like it or not, it's going to be up to you, but it's definitely one of those films you have to watch at least once just because of how weird it is. It's like House. It's one of those films you got to watch to see exactly how it is done. And like House, it's another Japanese film. Hey, another weird Japanese horror film. If this is how the Japanese horror films are, I'm surprised I did not start looking these films up earlier on my own. Now, I can see why that one director with the, I forget which Japanese horror film it was in the mid-2000s, did a film lampooning J-horror, because it was starting to go in a weird direction that was too reminiscent of American horror films, or at least from a mild understanding, that's what it kind of sounds like. Rating, I don't know what I would rate this. It'd probably take a couple more watches. It's just weird. I can definitely see why this is one of my professor's favorite films, because this seems like a film that's right up his alley, especially with how it's edited and all that. And I definitely could say I could see myself getting this film in my collection one of these days. Now, the thing to mention is that there's actually 2 sequels to this film. There's Tetsuo 2, Body Hammer, and Tetsuo the Bullet Man. Now, from what I've loosely read, apparently these are loose sequels, maybe sequels in concepts only, not sequels in storyline. So it's kind of like the Millennium Godzilla series. There's no continuity whatsoever other than the basic concept. But those ones at least have more of a connection than this one does.